Hi everybody, Cathy McLeish back again, and I'm talking about alcoholism. I have a series on alcoholism, just trying to raise awareness, break through some ignorance, and just tell about my life and the people that have been in my life, both in drinking and in recovery, and what I have learned from them. Now, this story is about me and my dad, and it's a little bit bittersweet, but it tells the story of, when I'm drinking, I perceive things in a certain way. And I am acting out in my life according to the way that I perceive things, even from the time that I was a little girl. And I'm pretty much totally unaware of that, but it is still the way that my life is going, the path that I'm maneuvering on. And so when I get sober and I have to stay away from a drink, I need to look at why. With my feelings, drinking became my answer. With my inability to deal with my feelings, understand, signals and relationships, understand my past, how, things evolved and how, I became the person that I was. So anyways, here is a little story. I am 1 in 10. I'm one of 7 girls. I am right in the middle of those 10 kids. And so there is statistically something to be said about the middle child. Maybe they get kind of lost or they don't get enough attention. Well, I can just say I might have been lost, but there would have never been enough attention for me. I just loved attention. And so in that family, if there wasn't enough attention, I would seek attention outside of my family. And, I always yearned for more attention from my dad. And growing up, I have fond memories of my dad, but he was more kind of a boy's dad and did a lot of stuff with my brothers. And so, I grow up and I marry, and I'm in this alcoholic marriage, and I don't know what I'm looking for in a man. I just want a man to like me. And I prefer that he treat me well, but in this situation with both of us drinking, that was not the case. So if you looked at another one of my videos, I think it's like Family Life, it only gets worse. And I can, point it out to you. But in that video, it talks about physical abuse. It talks about domestic violence. And I probably could have gotten arrested for what I did as well. But in the end, I had 2 black eyes, I had stitches, and I had a feeling of such low self-worth because nobody really came to help me or sent me the message, you don't deserve this, you should not be in this situation, you should get out, you should take care of yourself. That is the message today. If I had somebody in my life that was going through that, that is the message I would want them to hear, that however you got there, you do not deserve to be there. And there is a life outside of that. There's support outside of that. And you can find that with a phone number, with a phone call. Anyways, I didn't find that. And, at one period, shortly after that happened, I had 2 black eyes still. My mom called on the phone. They were in our part of town, and she wanted to come over with my father and visit the grandkids. And I said no, and obviously that's why. And she pushed me like, we never see you, we don't get to see the kids. Could we please come over? Could we please come over? And finally I just said, Mom, I have 2 black eyes and a busted face. And she said, oh, it's gotten that bad. And I said, yes, Mom, it's gotten that bad. And we wrapped up that phone call, and I'm sure I felt horrible. I'm sure I felt abandoned. I'm sure I felt a lot of things. But one of the things I thought in the back of my little girl mind is that my dad would come and protect me. I felt he had been a boxer in his younger life. He was a tough man. He had been an only child, wasn't even raised by his parents, didn't really have a father figure in his life other than his uncle, and he had gone on to make something of himself. He had gotten permission to go off to World War II at the age of 17. He was a tough guy, and I had seen him box. I had seen him, take my brothers through all of the sports and coach them on, and I thought, and I knew he could lay out my ex in a heartbeat, but I just thought he would. I thought he would hear what my mom just heard, and he would come and he would save me. And he didn't. And he didn't. and he didn't. And so there was a part of me, I never had that conversation with my dad, never had any other conversation with my mom about that. But there was a part of me that was like, here's my thought. Here's my response to that, Dad. I will cut you off. If you don't care about me, I don't care about you. If you see me as having no more worth than coming to protect me in this situation, then I don't need you in my life. I don't even want you in my life. And that was another relationship that was severed. Did I still see my dad? I did. Did I still, go to Christmas? I did. Usually drunk. So the emotions were definitely stifled, and I definitely stopped working that relationship at that point. Now, we're going to fast forward into sobriety. So maybe I was, 25, 26 at the time that happened, and I get sober at 27, and I have to start looking at my relationships, because if I want to stay away from a drink, something has to change. All these feelings that shoot at me that make me want to run for a drink, all this life that I cannot handle on life's terms that make me want to, drink till I pass out. All of that is still coming. I mean, it's still life. And so if I don't want to go back to a drink, I have to figure some of that out. Was I right about that relationship? Was I wrong and I need to stay away from those people? Or was I right and I need to stay away from those people? Anyways, so there's a lot of work I have to do, and I had a mentor to help me to do that. And she guided me through a lot of things, and we unpacked things that were painful from the time that I was in kindergarten. I kid you not. And, people saying things to me, doing things to me, and my reaction to them and my interpretation of them that was what? With a 5-year-old mind, a 7-year-old mind, a 9-year-old mind. And then going off into my teens, it was an alcoholic mind. So even if I aged, I still wasn't mature. So I'm still getting all of these stories, and I'm making up the endings. I'm coming to my own conclusions about what's going on. And then I'm living out those conclusions, my feelings about how people treated me, how people thought about me. I'm in everybody's head deciding what they think about me, how they feel about me. And that is where my self-worth is coming from. And isn't it interesting? I heard it about a month ago. Some guy on a podcast said, isn't it interesting that we get our self-worth from everybody outside of ourselves so often? Our self-worth is supposed to come from how we feel about ourselves. And we're looking outside of ourselves to see, what do you think about me? Do you think I'm okay? If you think I'm okay, I think I might be okay. Everybody, what do you think about me? And that's what I was doing in my alcoholic lifestyle. So I start to unpack this thing about my dad. And I'm really kind of unsure. It was like the jury was out with my parents. I really didn't understand a lot about my relationship with my parents in early sobriety. And then I'm like 5 years sober, and I get in this horrible car accident. I'm a single mom, horrible car accident. I almost die. And I have all of these injuries. And so I'm 33 years old, and I am pretty much on my own. My kids are like 7 and 8. And instantly, I have no job, I have no car, I cannot walk, I'm in a wheelchair. I have, busted face, all my teeth are gone, I have dental work, out the wazoo that has to be done. I have, broken arm, my leg was demolished by the motor of the car, engine of the car coming in and crushing it. And so I am like, basically handicapped, totally, incapacitated. And my dad had just retired, so he came into my life. Long story short, he was my chauffeur. He took me everywhere I needed to go. At one point, I had had 5 surgeries, and they had tried to put my jaw back together just by placing 2, pieces of metal in it. My jaw started to sink. It needed a 3rd piece of metal in this area. And so I had to go back in for another surgery on my jaw. My dad takes me. They give me a muscle relaxant. And if you think I talk fast or a lot now, I had a muscle relaxant, and I was just like nonstop talking. And my dad was there, and it was a very vulnerable time, because when you get this medication, whatever it was kind of like all bars down. I'll say whatever's on my mind, and I have no filter. And so I said to my dad, "Can I ask you a question, Dad? It's kind of tender." And he said, "Oh, I don't know, sweetheart. You've been tugging on my heartstrings." And he was not a man of a lot of words. And tugging on my heartstrings meant to me, I almost lost you, and it's hard to watch you as you're trying to crawl back into your life, and my heart is aching. And so he gave me permission, and I said, "Dad, when I was in that abusive relationship, when he was hurting me, that time when he punched me in the face and gave me 2 black eyes, why did you not come and help me?" And I was crying, of course, and he started crying, and he looked at me and he said, "I never knew. I never had any idea. Do you think I wouldn't have come to help you? I never knew." And I said, "But I told Mom on the telephone." And he said, "Your mom never told me. She never told me anything." And he said, "Your mom has this way of what you don't know can't hurt you." And I that was a very familiar expression and in our household. And I said, "Yeah." And he said, "Well, that isn't true, is it, Cathy?" And I was like, we were both crying, and it was like, no, that isn't true. And the realization to me was like, I had cut that man off. I had cut that man off at that point in my life, which had been close to 10 years ago, because of his lack of ability or interest in me to come and help me in my time of need, which he knew nothing about. And so it was such an example, it's like, however I'm raised, however I grow up, however the people act in my life, that it has its impression on me and maybe even steers my life in this direction or that direction, which I never intended to go, that is not necessarily on me. That might be on those people. But once I am an adult, once I am old enough to take the reins of my own life, what is that? 18, 21, 25? I was, 33. And it was time to take the reins on my own life and be responsible to clean up the feelings, the reactions, the resentments, the grudges, the sadness and the pain of what I thought in my mind and how I judged the people around me. All of the work that I did on myself, you know what it taught me? It taught me a lot about myself, not all good, but it also taught me that everybody has the feelings that I have. Everybody has the challenges. Everybody can get into resentments. Everybody can confuse the messages they're getting from other people. A lot of people can have low self-esteem. They can be waiting for someone else to tell them they're okay. And it was just a big eye-opener, a big way for me to see into the world of humanity that we all are broken in a sense, and that we can be a part of each other's healing, but not if we're only looking at ourselves and only worried about what's happening to us. In that moment, I was given a second chance with my dad. Now, did we run off into the fields and happily ever after? No, it wasn't like that, but boy, was it a new beginning, a new way of me looking at him as an adult and allowing him to be who he is, and then joining him in that relationship to make it, what it could be. Not maybe what that little girl wanted it to be all of her life, but what it could be with both of us, with what both of us had to bring to the relationship. So the power of healing, you don't have to be in recovery from alcoholism to go through a healing process with different relationships. You just have to have the courage, and they don't all work out. I mean, it didn't work out 100% happily ever after. Sometimes they don't work out at all, and you have to stay away from that person, and that is what you learn. But the problem is, if I don't do anything, I'm still acting and living on that big question mark of what really happened, or how do I feel about what really happened, or who am I because of what really happened. And if I can have the courage to walk back through that with somebody that is smarter than me, wiser than me, a therapist, a doctor, a counselor, a coach, a mentor, and sort those pieces out and find my answers, then I can start over from square one with that information and I can perform in those relationships, in and out of those relationships, as the person that I found myself to be. So a part of this learning and growing takes courage, and it just is so much worth the effort that I would like to tell a few stories about this process, that if we go through it, we can reconcile our past with our present and then go forward with kind of a freedom to be who we were meant to be. Thanks for listening. Please subscribe, follow, and I'll see you soon.